Welcome to the fourth segment of Tech to Sustain Conversations for a Greener Tomorrow. The previous segments we looked at how the retail industry, how the beverage industry, as well as how the hospitality industry took into sustainability and how technological innovations are helping them in that particular journey. This particular session, what we will be talking about is how conscious are the customers and how the conscious customers are driving the change in the business models towards sustainability. CEO, maybe I should come to you.
Sure. Thank you for asking that. So, customers and consumers and their participation is so vital in closing that sustainability loop. Uh, there are multiple researches which are done in past to really understand the gap between the intention action. Sometimes there is no intention, sometimes there is intention, but the action is missing. I will quote some numbers from one of the independent researches done by White, Hibab, and Hardesty in 2019. So they reveal some very interesting figures. 65% of the customers, they lack the motivation. So they know about what is sustainability, but they do not have enough motivation to invest. 31% of the customers, they have the motivation, but they lack the ability to participate because there is not enough infrastructure available. And 27% customers, they don't even have the understanding of what is sustainability. The retailing companies, they have an important part to play in all these three areas, creating avenues for the customers so that they understand what are the sustainable products. Sometimes there is so much information, yet it cannot be used by the customer because it is so confusing, or they get overwhelmed with the information. One of the very good example is, there is a very interesting term in the industry, right? They call it greenwashing. It's like where you present misleading facts to claim that the company is invested into sustainability. Now, how do we eliminate that? Companies needs to invest in standard labels, standard building standards, so that people understand, or the consumers understand, what they're buying is really sustainable or it is just greenwash. uh, Creating avenues for the customers to not only understand what they're buying, but even after the sales, they need to understand how can they make the best out of the product, how can they return the packaging, or how can they return an empty bottle to get a discounted refill. uh, Retailers need to invest in creating avenues like recycling bins to collect hazardous materials, creating avenues like ability to repair the items. And there are so many examples, right? It's like really a partnership between the consumer and the supplier to build that whole ecosystem where information is not only available but easy to understand and consumable, and then you really fill the gap between that intention and action.
Right. I mean, it's not just the logistics; it is also the reverse logistics, right? Nowadays, with all the kind of returnable kind of things and all those kind of things, and regulations kind of pushing people that you are responsible to take back at the end of the life. So the whole of the reverse logistics also plays as part of the strategy of many of the companies. And yes, you are right, and the retailers have a big role to play in that. Yalmis, on a similar question. The reason I'm coming to you is that you operate in a segment, it's a bit on a high-end luxury entertainment. The kind of customers might be slightly different over there. But is that this sentiment, or is there that customer voice that inspire, influence the company's some of your efforts, or is it the company's own way of thinking? What exactly is that? Is there a customer voice which is influencing you?
There's definitely a customer voice, but I think it's a multitude of reasons any company, including ours, will do things. Some of it's self-driven. It's simply recognizing that from an environmental sustainability standpoint in the world, a greener business is just a better business. So there are sort of implicit reasons to do things. But from an explicit standpoint, I agree with Suyog that there is a continuum from let's say on the environmental side, a dark green customer who really absorbs these considerations in their decision making, and there is no intention action gap. They live their values, and they choose electric vehicles. They choose certified hotel rooms. They buy organic food. So they are really living that stated value. On the other side, there might be a mainstream consumer for which, if there's a no downside, then they'll accept the environmentally or socially preferable product, but it's not really part of their consideration set. So one, that continuum of consumers. Let's not think of consumers, and particularly socially and environmentally responsible consumers, as one thing. Secondly, I'd say for someone like MGM, and candidly, probably many of the organizations on this panel and in the world, it's actually the B2B customer that has more influence, because they can bring social environmental criteria very concretely into their contracts and their agreements with their supply chain. And so when you see major convention clients like ours, I mean, I'm in Las Vegas, it's the world's capital of major conventions. When you see very concrete requirements around sustainability in a multi-year contract for conventions, there's a lot of power in that. And that can drive very significant investments and improvements. And then finally, the stakeholder I think that's most important right now, out of nowhere in the last 2 years, is the investor. Investors have not typically, apart from a small percentage of investors, really been interested in ESG or environmental social governance. Now they're deeply, deeply interested, because they know that external factors are very significant and material to a company. And what investors want more than anything is data about the company's performance over time on social and environmental factors. So I almost see it as, how important ERPs were to get a basic understanding about finance and operations. That level of, not that level of investment yet, but that type of thinking that we need to get a handle on our ESG data, manage it like financial data, that is arriving very quickly, because the investor is driving the demand for good data and good performance that shows up in the data.
Right. Right. Well, thanks for bringing that, because people have always been telling that the data is a critical challenge when it comes to the whole sustainability space, and also the standardization of that data, right, Elmas? Because until unless there is a standardization, every person will come out with their own definitions of the data, which is not comparable. And it becomes a bit of a challenge, and that's also improving these days with new standards coming in and this thing. And both you and Suyog did mention the different shades of green. Maybe we should say the 50 shades of green now. It's kind of a wide range, right? The consumers. So funny, maybe the as the last person on the consumer side, I mean, how much of that consumers interest kind of pushes the companies in this direction? I know, Scandinavia, Vijay did touch upon some of the beverage companies, how the whole packaging, how the things are changing and all those things, but Scandinavian consumers are a little different. I mean, you cannot take them as a benchmark across the world as well. But how much of it is influencing in your part of the world?
Sure, yeah. So again, despite a vast majority of consumers throughout the world dealing with the unprecedented economic hardships over the past few months, sustainability hasn't shown any signs of slowing down in importance, right? So more than the level of consciousness that customers are exhibiting across markets is the level of nuance they exhibit in making their purchase decisions. So despite the underlying differences across markets, what we know for sure is sustainability isn't just a trend that will come and pass. If you look at digital transformation, it caught momentum across the second decade of the century, and then the pandemic forced every business to transform digitally and deliver the final push. So in case of sustainability too, it is the same, except here, the stakes are higher and the need for change is more urgent. So this consciousness is surfacing in consumer decisions across all industries. And again, alcoholic beverages are no exception, with consumers placing a significantly higher priority on sustainability in alcoholic beverage production. In fact, consumers are thinking about the sustainability of alcoholic beverages in a multifaceted fashion, right? So, considering beverages made from locally sourced materials, a key factor in contributing to the sustainability of the drink they're holding in their hands. And this instinct is well founded because, as you know, locally sourced products in general contribute to a lower footprint from transit, increased utilization levels of local produce, and result in more intimate relationships between the business and the farming communities. So, as such, industry is embracing sustainability initiatives that make a positive contribution to the society and the planet. And technology and data sits at the forefront of all these initiatives and makes it possible to achieve these goals. From reducing waste in the brewing or distilling process and eliminating plastic packaging to reducing water usage and increasing energy efficiency, industry is making great strides to reduce its environmental impact. So other things that have emerged in the mindset are the distribution process of the product itself. They're like reusability of packaging and bottling and so on. Again, these opinions are definitely making their way into the boardroom, and well-known brands are very vocal about their sustainability efforts, like like their local sourcing strategies and their reusability of packaging, turning these sustainability qualifiers of purchase into science-based targets for their organization to achieve in the long run. And I'd like to reiterate what Vijay said, right? Every organization, I mean, in an alcohol beverage industry is no different, is using smart devices, right, to gain that competitive edge, because it's no brainer that using the smart devices and Internet of Things will help you be more efficient and more increase your efficiencies in the process. So not only these sustainable initiatives are the responsible thing to do, but they make good business sense. That's because sustainability in the beverage industry often translates into savings and improves profitability and the bottom line. And I'll echo what Yelma said, like, when environmental sustainability is an important thing to do, but the secondary effect of that is cost reduction. So, as you know, digital technologies are the driving force behind all these technologies. So, not only sustainability initiatives, alcoholic beverage industry such as waste reduction and recycling improve environmental performance, but they also help gain a competitive edge.
No, thank you. And I think what you said is right in terms of the technology and automations as well as digitizations really helps improve the accuracy and reliability of the data what we generate as well, which Yalma mentioned as well. The quality of the data need to improve in many of these things, and that really helps. So thanks to three of you, Sayog, Fani, as well as Yalmes, to kind of reiterate that yes, the consumers' thought process now is kind of really pushing the companies to take this forward as well.